The truth has arrived.
My name is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. And welcome back to the show. It is Tuesday. Yeah, I think it'll be Tuesday. Yeah, it'll be Tuesday. Every day seems the same for me when I'm on the road, and now I'm in Arkansas and it's raining. You may hear, I don't know if I'm quiet. I don't know if you can hear the rain or not. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But I'm in the CQR. If I'm going to bring the CQRF back and start pumping that up again, that's the Constitution Quick Reaction Force, to try to get people pumped up this week. And I did that several years ago and actually started to get a pretty good little hashtag going. But it needs to be more than a hashtag. People need to realize that what is happening right now, I mean, I'm pretty sure most people see that stuff is happening. But you really do need to realize that it is we are right now in a very critical time in this nation, more critical than we've ever been before, and I couldn't think of a better way to describe where we're at in this nation than by discussing what happened in Philadelphia today, and not so much the incident that happened. There was a shooting of a 27-year-old man, but the reality is what the reaction is from the left. And every time they turn it into some type of racial tragedy, this Fox News, used these, like every other online network, uses these tweets that people put out, these reporters and other people and civilians, just people, they'll use their tweets and they'll build a story around it. Fox News is going further to the left very quickly. And when I saw this one tweet by a news person that they put out, I looked up her Twitter, and it's Eileen Rushing. I don't know who she is, but anyway, the way they report it, first of all, is ridiculous. It's not reality. They're saying, when they describe this guy, Walter Wallace Jr., 27, a twin, father and son, was shot 10 times by police, said his father, Walter Wallace Sr. And I get, I've seen the video. He's got a knife, and it's not like this guy is in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere walking around with a knife. He's walking in between cars. There's people all over the place. His mom's chasing him around. There's two cops that I can see right there. Within 10 feet, the guy could have turned around and stabbed anyone. I can't even tell you the number of videos I've seen, not only of somebody with a knife approaching police and they're hesitant to shoot the person, and they end up closing the distance too fast, and they stab the cop before they get a shot off. I've also seen them when they are too close to the one cop and the other cop can't shoot. And then I've also seen videos. I mean, these videos are out there. I've seen videos from Israel, for instance, where you have a Muslim terrorist coming up and stabbing women and people at a bus stop. In Israel, a lot of people are armed. So this one particular video, I've seen several, but this one particular video really stood out because the guy had a machete. He starts whacking people with a machete. He gets shot. He falls down. Guy's holding on him. He stands up again. He gets shot. He goes down. He gets back up and actually hits somebody with the machete until it was a military or police unit just happened to be around the corner, runs up and shoots and kills the guy. I've seen videos where a cop was backing up, which you should not do. When you're dealing with an enemy, or when you're dealing with emotionally disturbed person, or it doesn't matter if you're in the military and law enforcement, you don't back up. You do not, never with a gun do you back up, because if you fall and the person comes at you, they have an upper hand on you. And this cop is backing up, and the dude ran from about 50 yards away, had plenty of time to shoot him, but then the cop falls, the guy runs up on him, he tussles with him, gets stabbed, and then finally is able to, not him, but another cop pulls a couple of rounds off. He still doesn't die, and then finally when they get distance, they shoot him and kill him. Now, when I look at what the people are writing in response to the video being posted, that's the thing that I always try to look past the story. The story is a 27-year-old emotionally disturbed person with a knife is walking around, and I only saw part of the end. I don't know what occurred between the time that the cops got there and the time of the shooting. You only see about 30 seconds. And, of course, the guy that's filming it's like, did you have to shoot him that many times? I mean, I don't understand what overkill is when you're dealing with a bad guy with a knife, and there's an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury, which the Supreme Court says is the standard for shooting somebody. What does it matter if you shoot them 5 or 50 times? As long as the knife is still in their hand and they still pose a threat and you don't know if they're dead, you eliminate the threat. That's the way the law is written. It's not a racist law. It's not an immoral law. It's a law that gives law enforcement and you, if you're carrying, it gives you and law enforcement a standard in which to defend yourself. And it doesn't say that you can only shoot them 5 times, or that you can only shoot them 3 times, or you can only shoot them until they're dead and then you have to stop shooting. It doesn't say that. When you're in that type of a situation, especially if there's multiple officers there and they're all shooting, you can't sit there and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds, okay. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, they're not moving anymore. They must be dead. I'm going to stop shooting. Those videos that I told you about, there were multiple times. I mean, this happens a lot. Somebody gets shot, they go down, but they're not dead. They get up and they still pose an imminent threat. There was an FBI agent killed, I believe it was in 1987 in Miami in a shootout. He was killed by a man that was already shot and had sustained a mortal wound. The guy was dying. He had about 30 seconds to live. He cracked off a round from his rifle and killed an FBI agent. Once you start firing, first of all, you have to determine and assess the situation. Once you determine through your assessment that there's an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury, you now have the right to use deadly force. Now, that assessment may be instantaneous. It may be in the moment. A guy's got a knife. You can't back up. They're charging you, or they're within 21 feet, which is the standard. Why is that the standard? Because if you go from a drawn position to try to shoot somebody and they're 21 feet away, they can close the distance where they can get on top of you. Yeah, you may shoot them, but they can still stab you before that threat is eliminated. Remember, the threat is eliminated when they're completely out of service, when the person is down and they're not getting back up. So this assessment that happens can be within a split second, and the threat is there. That's why you train. That's why, and that, again, defunding police departments. See this cyclical thing? If they're not training, if they're not funded to train, they're not going to be training. If they're not training, then they're not going to be able to make these split-second decisions, which a lot of the times you see with law enforcement. I watch these videos, and I'm thinking to myself, man, they could have taken this guy out long before that. And they end up getting themselves, it's not about how close should I let this threat get before I eliminate it. That is not what the Supreme Court says. That is not what the standard is. if there is a threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury, you can use deadly force. And if it is somebody who is armed and committing a felony, you don't have to wait for them to turn around and lunge at you. If they are in the middle, which in this case they were, the middle of a crowd, there's a guy filming it, people talking, people all around, mom's following this guy around. He's like, saying no, whatever he's saying. He's like, you can tell he's like shoving off her and shoving off the police, and he walks around. You don't have to wait for him to lunge at you, run at you. He's in the midst of all those people. This is what law enforcement and the community at large needs to realize, is that when the imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury appears and is there, and it's imminent, not just with you, but with anybody around you, and you are in a populated area, you don't have to wait for the person to turn around and come at you before you shoot them. You can shoot them in the back because you are eliminating the threat. You don't know if they're going to lunge at that person or at that person, if he's going to turn around and kill his mom. You don't know. And the cops don't have to wait for that individual to turn around and come after them. That's not what their job is all about. Their job isn't to drive around and make sure nobody threatens them. Their job is to go out there and police the community and make sure that these people are not threatening the community by putting themselves in there. It's very interesting. I learned, I have a degree in psychology, and I try to take in anything that has to do with psychology when I can. And I was watching a video, this is a while back. I was watching a video about this guy that lived with wolves. He really lived with wolves, but it wasn't in the wild. He lived in a controlled environment. And he was talking about the different jobs that the different wolves have in the community. And one of the wolves is the enforcer. One of the wolves is the peacemaker. Now, this is what's funny, is it actually translates over to regular dogs. And when you have a litter of pups and people come over and they're wanting to pick out the dog, or maybe they go to the pound and you go up, and quite often the dog that comes up to you that you think is the sweetest, nicest dog, because that's the one that came up to you, must love people, actually has its origins in the enforcer. It's the one that actually are the protector of the group that is patrolling. You can hear the rain out there if you hear any of the tapping in the background. So it's the dog that makes the best pet is the peacemaker. That's the one when the alpha dogs get on each other and they start to fight. You watch wolves. Watch this happen. There'll be a dog that gets in between them and will rub up on the dogs to try to get them basically to calm down. And quite often, that's the dog that ends up getting beat up or picked on. But the dog, that's their job. They're the peacemaker. And that's kind of where law enforcement is stuck. They're stuck in the middle of the crazies and the community. And these same people that are criticizing and coming down the cops and reporting ridiculous stuff are the same ones that would be hammering law enforcement if they didn't show up and somebody got killed. So when I read, for instance, what this council member, Jamie Gauthier, I don't know how you say her last name, Gauthier. Anyway, she this is her statement regarding the death of Walter Wallace Jr. Say his name, hashtag. Yeah, I'll say his name, Walter Wallace Jr. He's a 27-year-old guy walking around with a knife in a community and caused himself to get killed. Sorry. This is what she has to say. This is a downright tragedy. Walter Wallace Jr., a resident of my district, was shot to death by police while his mother stood steps away. Okay. First of all, I've seen the video. His mom isn't just standing steps away. His mom was trying to get him to calm down, and he had a knife. and was not listening to commands from police. Was it just like she just standing there, he's just standing there, and the cops just came up and shot the guy? There's a whole backstory to this. She doesn't have anything to say about that backstory. Like, this is a tragedy because he was raised bad by the same woman that was standing next to him, and he is either, I don't know if they always say he's crazy. He's either crazy or he's a thug. Either way, he wasn't listening to cops, and you could tell in the neighborhood that he's in. It looked like everybody knew who he was in the video that I saw. She says she wants to extend her deepest condolences to her, the mom, and to all this young man's family and friends. Our whole community is mourning his loss tonight. What if the police had just said, listen, that's your problem, not ours, and they just drove off, and he ended up killing the mom or somebody else or a bunch of people or himself right there? What would this council member be saying then? Jamie, Gauthier. That's her last name. What would she be saying? What would all these people be saying? You know what they'd be saying? I'll tell you what they'd be saying. I can't believe those cops. That guy had a knife, and they just said, that's your problem, and they just drove off. And there'd be lawsuits all over the place. That's exactly what would happen. She says she's calling on the Philadelphia Police Department to immediately release the body camera footage of the officers involved in this incident. Well, there's film footage of it. The public deserves a full, unvarnished account of what took place today. Then she goes on to say, we must acknowledge that things did not need to play out this way. Really? Why don't you go get a gun and go out and police that neighborhood? Let's see how that works out when somebody with a knife is threatening you. Resorting to the use of a service weapon should be the absolute last resort of any officer. I saw the video. These cops are running around in a circle with this guy around a car. It's not the first thing that they tried to do. They're yelling at the guy, giving him commands. And it looked like it was the last thing. Everybody says, why don't you use a taser? I've seen people tased. It doesn't work on every single person. Just like mace or pepper spray doesn't work on every single person. She said, had these officers employed de-escalation techniques and non-lethal weapons rather than making the split-second decision to fire their guns, this young man might still have his life today. Sorry. That's not the way it works. You don't go into a situation, again, like I said, where somebody is posing an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury to the officers or the community around them, and it's a populated area. You cannot sit there and think, let's see, we have any pepper spray? Can we get him with pepper spray? Let's try to tase him from 10 feet away and hope that we hit him with the barbs and he's not able to lunge at us or kill somebody else. That is not the way it works. These are not police officers that rolled up to that area with German shepherds and batons and just started beating people and shot this guy. That's not what happened here. But that's the way that these people want to make it sound. Like the cops just rolled up and brutalized this community by just picking this guy out and shooting him. And he's just a young model citizen who's a father. Listen, they're saying, on one hand, they say, oh, he's got emotional problems. On the other hand, he is a father and has kids. He seems like he's got the ability to make that decision. Sounds to me like he was probably on dope. Has no respect for police, obviously doesn't listen to his mom, and he had a knife and threatened people, and he got shot. That's what it sounds like. De-escalation techniques. She goes on to say, this young man might still have his life tonight. Had these officers valued the life of this black man, now she's going to throw the color of the guy's skin in there. Had they treated him as a person experiencing mental health issues. Okay, now he's mental health instead of a criminal. Well, when cops roll up there and somebody is using a deadly weapon to threaten people in a populated area, the law doesn't say that because they have a mental issue that they're less of a threat. They don't say that an officer is entitled to use, after doing assessment and determining that there's an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury, that they can use deadly force except if they are mentally disabled or if they have mental health issues. There's no caveat there. If the person is posing an imminent threat to take someone's life or to seriously injure somebody, you can take their life. It doesn't matter what the state of their mind is. It doesn't matter what happened, if they're having a bad day. It doesn't matter. The officer's job is not to come up there and judge the situation and say this person is less of a threat and most likely not going to do something, because the officer has no way of predicting that. Well, this guy's a black guy and he's a father. We can't shoot him. That's not what happens. They don't roll up and say, well, this is a white guy. He's probably not going to be the guy who goes around killing somebody. They don't say that. Police officers walk up, drive up, arrive on scene, and they analyze the situation. I know this is surprising for people like this council member, but if it's a black community and the cops roll up, it has nothing. It's not like they're rolling up because he's black. They're rolling up because most likely they get a phone call that there's something going on. The guy possibly has a knife, and he's in a black community. It would have been the same. I saw a video the other day of a white guy that got shot the same way. Wouldn't drop the knife, charged the cops, got shot. Imminent threat. They didn't have a lot of time to analyze the situation. There wasn't anything that they could do. People don't realize how deadly a knife is, how deadly a knife strike is. They don't realize that, and the serious injury that you can have. Look, people also say, you should have shot him in the leg. Joe Biden says that. Shot in the air, scared him. Listen, folks, a serious bodily injury. Why? And this is what the law says. The law says why. I mean, it doesn't say this exactly, but this is what it's assuming is, why should you or the rest of the public take the risk of a serious bodily injury? We're talking maimed arms, slashed up face, potentially death. Why should you take the risk of that when you have law enforcement to protect you? Or you have the right, you really do have the right to carry a weapon and defend yourself if that person is posing a serious imminent threat. Now, if you don't know if it's a gun or a knife and you can't tell and they have not hurt anybody, you have to think your way through this. This is what's so ridiculous about these statements that people make. She goes on to say, in this moment of reckoning and pain for West Philly, we need accountability, we need justice, and we need it now. Okay, let's break that down. This moment of reckoning, what does she think that this is going to be, that this is going to be it? That this guy is a martyr, despite the fact that he was threatening people with a knife, a deadly weapon. He's a martyr, this guy. And there's going to be a reckoning here. I mean, listen to the language. They need accountability. Well, yeah, I agree with that, but look at the video. The video shows it. But they want body cams, even though there's the third party there that's recording it. She says, we need justice. Well, what about the community? What about the community that was being threatened at that moment? Is it not justice that threat was eliminated? I believe it is. I believe the law says that. There's more to this. There's more. I actually responded to. I believe that this guy. Let me see. I can pull this up here real quick. The attorney that was for George Floyd's family. This guy seems to bounce around. He purports himself to be a civil rights attorney. He seems to pop up anywhere that something like this is occurring. Ben Crump is his name. And this is what I wanted to talk about, Ashley, to get into this. I just kind of took the long way around to get to this. But when you read, so you can go on my Twitter, and I basically said on there the same thing I'm going to talk about now, which is that if you want to see demonic influence, look past the video of the police stopping the psycho with a knife and read the comments on this ambulance-chasing attorney's tweet. They're robotic, they're narcissistic, know-it-all demonic morons. And when you, it's not my tweet, but because I quote tweeted him, which means that I click on the retweet button and then, but I do quote tweet, and so I can put what I have to say up there, and so you can go down and then see his tweet. These are the responses to this, okay? To a video that clearly shows them yelling at the guy, put the knife down. He's walking in and around the cars between people, posing this imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury. And still these weirdos come on underneath there and say this stuff. Awful, criminal, tragic. We must stop this. What are you going to stop? What are you stopping? That's what I don't understand. Does this woman, Karen, her name happens to be Karen, does she think that, and actually another person asked her, stop what, Karen? I thought they were being facetious, and she says, the murder of black men at the hands of police. And then the other one puts a little heart picture up there. So according to Karen, the police should not stop this guy. They shouldn't use equal force or deadly force to make sure that the community at large is safe. I suppose that Karen thinks that if Philly starts sending out psychologists to talk with this guy, that's going to change things. It's not going to change anything. It goes on. Let's listen. Let's look at some more. Unthinkable. I want to scream. Police officers need to have real training before they can wear a badge. They need to be screened and get schooling. The reason I'm laughing at this, it goes on. Police science, psychology, de-escalation. This is not a war zone. They shouldn't go through the basic training. Or they shouldn't go through basic training. Change it now. That's what Grace says. So, Grace, you're most likely one of the same people that says that they should defund police officers. Well, you can't put police through all this training without a budget. Sorry. To be honest with you, the reason why training has gotten so bad is because of Democrat mayors and liberal chiefs and sheriffs. So this is the other thing she doesn't understand. Police science. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it's most likely if there's a class called police science, it was created by somebody who was never a cop. Or it was created by somebody who's trying to basically make a name for themselves that was a cop by creating a course. Police science. Never heard of it. Psychology. I have a degree in psychology, and I'm here to tell you that having a degree in psychology or studying psychology is nowhere in the same ballpark as being a cop. It's a whole different, actually on-the-job training is probably for real psychology, not the way it's become this leftist joke. The career field of psychology is a leftist nightmare. I mean, when I say it's a leftist nightmare, it's a nightmare of leftists. They're the same people that say now that transgender is not a psychological problem, it's a health issue, because they're literally saying they're just born in the wrong body. So it's a medical issue, not a mental health issue. It's just a health issue, or a medical issue, excuse me. That is the psychology career field. That's now what they say. So this person's saying that police science, psychology, de-escalation. Well, we are taught de-escalation, and the job teaches you psychology. Trust me, these cops see things that most people will never see and don't want to see. I have a good friend who's a detective in Little Rock, Arkansas. Used to tell me all kinds of stories. I was a cop at Camp Robinson. Not the same amount, not the same kind of stuff going on that base, National Guard base, 33,000 acres, as you would have as a detective working gangs in Little Rock. Unbelievable the stuff that he would see. He talked about going into homes where, these people sold drugs all night, would sleep all day, get up, do drugs, and then sell their drugs, and have babies. And their babies they put a diaper on them, and those babies would defecate in the diaper, and that diaper, when it came off, whoever took it off or it fell off would stay in the floor where it came off. And these cops were called for whatever, domestics or whatever. They would go walking through the house, and he said, "This man, I've seen some of this in New York, but this one particular story, when he said he walked through the house and it was so overwhelming that he literally was gagging as he walked through the house." And these people are passed out on dope with kids walking around with shitty diapers. I talked to a detective once in another part of the country who was undercover and in a crack house. And a woman came to the door trying to buy crack with a check. That's the funny part about it. They, of course, told her to get out of there. The drug dealer said, "What are you, crazy crackhead? Get out of here. You can't pay for drugs with a check." So she came back a little while later. This woman's a nurse, by the way, or was. She came back with her daughter. I know she's like 12 years old. And she tried to trade her for crack. And luckily, the officer that was there threw a fit and said, he didn't want to have any part of that. And so made the woman go away and didn't blow his cover. And this is what the officers deal with. This person, that councilwoman is talking about, this isn't a war zone. It is a war zone. I hate to tell you. More cops die every year in the United States in the line of duty than active duty military overseas fighting the war on terror. Fact. It's a war zone here. The same woman, this councilwoman, who's a Democrat, and all these people on this feed, which I really, if you can go read what these people say, it's mind-blowingly stupid. They're all Democrats. Another woman says, "I'm so tired of this. When will it end?" Well, let's see. Clean up the inner city, build a wall so that drugs can be slowed down, pass huge penalties for dealing drugs, like the death penalty, for dealing drugs. The Democrats are going the opposite way. They want to legalize drugs and let people out of jail. Trust me, if drugs are legal, if it's not done correctly, we will have the worst violence problem we've ever had in this country. Another woman says, my heart breaks for this mother. I cannot even begin to imagine her pain. Now, I will say this. It's a shame that he had to get shot right in front of his mom, but that's what happens when you raise a kid who goes around getting in the middle of a crowd, pulling out a knife, and going crazy. I don't know. It is tragic that it happened in front of his mom, but the police are not. They can't. The law doesn't state you should only use force for an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury if the mom is not present. Sorry, that's not the way it works. Not in real time. Another person says, "Oh my Lord, not again." Not again. They're saying that this is the same as George Floyd. It's not the same. George Floyd was murdered by a police officer who sat on his head. Those cops could not have felt their lives were threatened. Why did they murder that man in the street like that? Do they believe his life was worth nothing? You see, this is a typical troll right here. This may even be part of the AI, the artificial intelligence, that General Stanley McChrystal, and these leftists from Silicon Valley created to fight terrorism, quote unquote, but they used our funding, taxpayer funding, and now they're using that same AI to either smother conservative Trump supporters and their social media responses, or go out and make it look like there's so many more people that are behind, the leftist movement. That's the way this is being used. That's one of those. I can just read these now. They're like so obviously poetically stupid. Those cops could not have felt the lie. Let me say it right, okay? Those cops could not have felt their lives were threatened. What does that mean even? Those cops were running around a car as a big, huge, tall, 27-year-old kid had a knife and was not responding to commands. How do you feel? Again, this is a troll, but that's what they do. They insert these things all over the place by the thousands, fake accounts, or they pay people to use their accounts, and then they create these. And then they pump them out over and over and over again. They'll tweak it the way it's worded, but basically saying the same thing. Did they believe his life was worth nothing? Who talks like that? Woman goes on to say, that's exactly what they believe. So, again, a lot of times these trolls or these bots will answer themselves. So you think there's a whole conversation going on, but there's not. She says that's exactly what they believe. Those officers and others who think like them need to be removed from the police department. Surely there are decent people who can be trained to replace them. No one talks like that. No one talks like that. No one comes up with conclusions that are that crazy and stupid. I'm so tired of police killing black people. Please stop. That's what another woman says. So she added the please stop. Please stop. Would you please stop? Again, this community is where this was occurring. It's not like the cops showed up to bring the fight into the black community. They went to a black community where the call led them to. It's not like they're rolling up just randomly shooting black people. It's not happening. That's a media political lie. This other person says, I can't watch this stuff without throwing up. Then don't watch it. So what I want you to look at, if you go look at these responses or if you see this stuff on social media, why I say it's demonic, again, the robotic, narcissistic, I know it all type of responses that are on here are, there's just no way, there is no possible way that people in a free nation will just feel and say the same thing like these people at large numbers without seeing any kind. They just do not see what this individual did. They either refuse to see it, or they're being influenced by things that you don't see. You still hear the rain popping. Sounds like popcorn coming up behind me. By the way, I'm no fan of winter. I think winter is something that you should visit. I don't know why people want to live in the winter, especially fall. When it starts raining and it's cold, reminds me too much of SEAL training. Not a fan. By the way, Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed today, and I'm really hoping that works out well. I really hope it does. I wish her all the luck, and I hope she's not another John Roberts. Completely fake, but look, he was put up there by the Bushes, who, again, are just as fake as the rest of the establishment in the Republican Party. Now, listen, I want to leave you with this. I know I'm not good. Some of these podcasts I'm doing recently aren't that in depth. It's a little bit more difficult to do these things on the road when I'm on the road, especially when I'm looking at news. There's a lot of little things that happened today. 50 Cent, who came out saying he didn't want to be 20 Cent, so he's voting for Donald Trump, now says F Trump. You know, not just saying, well, I don't really support Trump. He comes out and says F Trump. I got news for 50 Cent. Trump's a billionaire. I'm going to go with the guy who's a billionaire, not a guy who's worth 50 Cent. Also, Trump has done more for the black community. You know what's really weird? If you were talking to me a year ago, I never said black. I never talked about somebody by the color of skin unless they themselves define themselves that way. I just do not. I will never feel comfortable defining a man, a human being, by the color of skin. I just won't. It bothers me greatly. It bothers me greatly because there's no merit in that. I can't say that someone is good or bad because of the color of their skin. I've been around great men, and I've been around terrible men. I've been around women who are spectacular and can achieve anything, and I've been around women who are narcissistic, clickbait. Just, that's all they want, is just to be seen. And they're terrible people, not nice at all. None of it had to do with the color of their skin. It had to do with who they were. So I want to leave you with this last thought here, is that just like I'm not comfortable defining someone by the color of their skin, I'm not comfortable with politicians who are afraid to get a little rough around the edges. You know, we're in a position, and we're in a place now where there's going to be a lot of people that potentially could lose their campaigns in a week that are Republican because they weren't willing to stand up and tell the American people the reality of what's happening. That there's a socialist takeover happening, that demonic influence is everywhere, that if we lose the local votes and the congressional and the Senate votes, if we lose, the country is lost. It doesn't matter who's president. People that are running for office in the Republican Party, and again, I am a conservative, or you call me originalist, a constitutionalist. People have to realize, if you're running for office and you're not willing right now to tell the American people the reality of what's happening and what you're going to do and what you hope to do to thwart it, and all you do is tiptoe around, you don't deserve to be in that office. I mean, I still hope you win so that we, at least for 2 to 4 years or 6 years, can stop this onslaught of socialist takeover, of robotic, narcissistic, demonic know-it-alls that we can stop that. But ultimately, listen, I'll just tell you right now, if you don't have the guts to stand up and point out what's really happening and truly say what you're going to do. What do you think this is? What do you think politics is? Do you think it's just a game so you can get a paycheck or so you get notoriety? This isn't social media. There are ramifications for taking a seat, whether it be Congress, the Senate, or any other political seat. There's ramifications for you taking that seat and doing nothing. Because while you do nothing, great men and women who can make real changes, defend this nation, and stop this leftist movement won't be able to step forward and do what God intended them to do. Now, if you want to go and you want to have an office, and that's the way you want to get in there, and you get in there, trust me, we will know it. The American people will know it, and you will fail. You will, and if you get reelected, you will sit up there, and the day you die, you will know that you are a failure that caused real pain in this country. Look, you want to fix what's going on in the inner city. Let's say you say that you're running as a conservative, you're running as a Republican, but you're really not that conservative, which means that ideologically you're going to align with a lot of the things that they say on the left. Well, I got news for you. You're not going to make healthcare cheaper. You're not going to make neighborhoods safer. You're not going to make things work better in this nation if you're fake. And if you're stupid and fake, it's really not going to work out. And quite frankly, I just got to tell you, I am really sick and tired of politics. I am sick and tired of being censored while I live in a free country. I can't even right now go online on social media and truly say what I want to say because I'm afraid that my accounts are going to be gone. And quite frankly, I'm traveling right now, so I don't have the time to pick up and notify every single person that I've befriended over the past, 10 or more years on social media. Many of the people I haven't seen over 30 years that I went to high school with. When they took my Facebook down, luckily I got it back. I have to tiptoe right now myself to keep that from being taken down again and saying the wrong thing. Why should I have to live like that in a free nation? It's not just on social media. Yeah, they're private companies. I know what you're saying. Listen, Ma Bell was a private company, but it got too big. The people got too dependent on it, and it was too much of a monopoly. That's what's happened with social media. But the fact is, I'm a free damn man, and I can't be free. I can't carry a gun in every state in the country, even though the federal Constitution says that I have the right to bear arms. I can't go around and give my opinion without fear that I will never get a job in certain arenas anymore. Not that my opinion's even bad. Not that I have any prejudice in my opinion or any threat in my opinion. But just because it doesn't align with the left, just because I believe that people should have to work for a paycheck, just because I believe that babies should not be killed before they come out of the womb, or set aside like these weirdo leftist governors and mayors think that you should just be able to set the baby aside after it's born and then decide if you want to kill it. How is it that I live in a country where that is even a thought? And I cannot wrap my head around how this has occurred. Listen, I know there's tons of people listening to this say, well, that's not my fault. I'm the one who I always speak out. Listen, it doesn't matter what you alone want to do or think is right. The country itself has failed. The people have failed. And we're now in a position. I want you to seriously think about this. We are now in a position where if this election went completely to the left, babies can be set to the side on a table after they're born and then killed. That is the stuff of Hitler. I live in a country right now as a free man. I drive state to state. Depending on whether that state is ran by the Republican Party or the Democrat Party, completely determines right now the economic status of that state. The freedom and the happiness of the people in that state is determined by that. Not by the Constitution. It's determined by which political party is in office. And in the states like New York, where it's predominantly liberal, even the Republicans there have bent over and gave full autonomy, full power to Cuomo, the governor, who is, by and large, the biggest psychopathic, murdering weirdo, mini dictator that there is in the world today. Cuomo, if you were to take Cuomo and the person that he is, and then multiply that on the level of like China, for instance, he's worse than the Chinese dictator and the Chinese Communist Party. I've never seen the Chinese government not hide what they're doing. I mean, they're an evil communist party that runs China. There's no doubt about it. But Cuomo is so psychopathic that it's not that he's dirty and that he's a criminal. He's literally a megalomaniac, psychopathic, antisocial narcissist. He's got all of it wrapped up into one. To know that he said, if he gave that whole great leader speech about if it's on me, whatever happens is on me. And then when all these people died, not only did he turn around and blame everybody else, he had a ghostwriter write a book about how successful he is in handling the COVID crisis. Do you not see how crazy that is? This guy and all these other governors, Gretchen Whitmer, all these other governors and all these other liberal states, as I go through them, the fear factor is there. It goes up. Your right to bear arms has been trampled all over. Your freedom of speech has been trampled all over. The rights of the unborn and the born have been trampled all over. How is that possible? How have you let that happen? And now we sit on the cusp of potentially the greatest loss of freedom in the history of this nation. Very young nation. Just over 240 years since it was founded. And you've given it away that quick. If the president loses and we lose the Senate and Congress, we're done. We're going to war. And quite frankly, I don't have faith in most people to come together and fight against what the left would do, which is declare martial law. Which I'm going to paint this picture for the leftists and the liberals who listen to this show. If the Democrat Party was to win Congress and to win the Senate and win the presidency, they would stack the Supreme Court, which means they would own that as well. One of the first things they would do is declare martial law. And all of these riots and all of the destruction would come to an immediate halt because they would use National Guard. This is what's happened throughout history whenever a leftist party has gotten into control. It's called normalization. Talk to anybody that grew up in and around a communist regime or socialist regime. Normalization. It's not that they're going to make things, normal and great. It's that normalization means they are going to get rid of all the loud people, which really basically includes everyone that says anything against the government. That's what they'll do. They'll roll the tanks out. You think I'm being crazy? Look at history. That's what's going to happen. And it's only going to get worse from there. The problem is cops don't want to lose their paycheck. And if if the regime started up and we lost everything to the left, the cops are going to stand with those regimes. It happens throughout history. Look it up. Same thing with the military. The military has been groomed for this for many, many years. They don't want to get women in special forces because they care about women. They're trying to break down the Spartan warrior mindset. That's what they're trying to do. That's what it's all about. And so why would they want to break that down? Why would they want to weaken the military? Because a weaker military is easier to control. That's what the left wants. They want to be able to roll them out on the streets. Look, they're the same people who were saying defund the police, let out criminals, kill babies. Is it such a shock that they'd want to do that? You better wake up and realize what's happening. I'm just shocked every day at how, as a free man, how oppressed I am. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It doesn't matter if you're a black man, a white man, a woman, gay, straight. It really doesn't matter. Your freedoms are being oppressed. You cannot go. You can't even be gay and say that you're for Trump, or a black man that says he's for Trump without being harassed. You can't say you're Jewish and support Trump and go walk through New York City and proclaim that. You will be injured, which happened yesterday or Sunday. Jews were beat up in New York City for supporting Trump. That's called oppression. Do you realize you are free people? No more. You are being oppressed. Gosh, I can't say it enough. Now, I can't say this enough. Maybe you're a young person and you've never voted before this election. Or maybe you're an elderly person, you voted 50 times before. Maybe this is the first time you've ever ran for political office. Regardless, you have to realize we are on the potential edge of a socialist takeover. Right now, if you were to drive state to state, your level of freedom is not determined by the Constitution. It's going to be determined by what political party is in office in each state. I was born a free man, but yet my speech is censored, and I can't even carry a weapon in many states, regardless of what the Constitution says. It is time to stop tiptoeing around and stand up. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and I'm out of here.